The Arctic, one of the most fascinating yet hostile places on our planet. In this video, we're going to go to the Arctic and find out some crazy facts about it. Buckle up for Expedition Unknown, the Arctic. First things first, what's happening up there? Well, the Arctic is located in the northern hemisphere. It makes up 20% of the Earth's land area and almost 5% of the Earth's total surface area. The Arctic is surrounded by many countries. Canada has the largest portion of land that borders the Arctic. Then we have Russia, then the United States, then we have Norway, then Denmark, and then finally Sweden. There are also three main seas that border the Arctic. To the west, we have the Pacific Arctic. Then to the east, we have the Atlantic Arctic. And then to the south, we have the Southern Arctic Sea. Even though all of these countries border the Arctic, only one country is in the Arctic. What is that country? Well, that country is called Greenland. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about temperatures. What's the average temperature up there? Well, during the winter months, December through February, the average temperature is -34 degrees Celsius. But during the summer months, June, July, and August, the average temperature is 2 degrees Celsius. Those are some crazy temperature differences, but wait, it gets worse. Talking about extreme conditions, during the winter months, the sun only shines for about 3 hours a day. But during the summer months, the sun shines for about 21 hours a day. But hey, maybe if there's such extreme conditions up there won't be many people living up there. Well, you'd be wrong. In fact, there are hundreds of communities in the Arctic with thousands of people living in each community. These communities are mainly inhabited by the Inuit people. Wait, if no one lives in the Arctic, then who owns the resources on the bottom of the Arctic? Well, it turns out that no country actually owns the resources on the bottom of the Arctic. Why? Well, because it's all considered a common area. This means that all countries can come together and use the resources as they want. Countries like Canada, the US, China, Russia, and Denmark are all racing to claim the Arctic as their own. Why? Well, because there's lots of resources up there. In fact, it's estimated that there are 40 billion barrels of oil up there and 90 billion cubic meters of natural gas. But wait, if there's all this oil and gas up there, then shouldn't the entire planet be covered in giant oil rigs? Well, no, in fact, the Arctic is one of the last places on Earth that doesn't have any permanent residents. This is due to the weather conditions. As you've already learned, it's extremely cold and there's very little sunlight. Because of these extreme conditions, most animals don't live in the Arctic. However, we can't end this video without talking about the one animal that pretty much owns the Arctic, and that animal is the polar bear. Polar bears can only be found in the Arctic. In fact, they rely on the Arctic for food and shelter. Under all the ice, there are two main currents in the Arctic. One is called the East Greenland Current, and the other one is called the West Spitsbergen Current. These currents bring warm water from the south to the Arctic, and even though it might sound bad, it's actually really good for the Arctic. Why? Well, because it keeps the Arctic from being a solid sheet of ice, allowing ships to be able to cross the Arctic. And speaking of ice, if you think that the Arctic is cold, you'd be right. The average sea temperature in the Arctic is -1.8 degrees Celsius. Well, that brings us to the end of this video. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. See you next time.